keeping us from ever realizing who we were. That's what made Larry tell me we was brain banging, not gang banging. So when they start to establish who was civilized and not, the first of the litmus test was their level of technology. Now you got to remember, this is a non-technical era where they're using our technology as a standard to determine if we're a civilized or uncivilized tribe. Settlers often view tribes with less advanced technology as being uncivilized. For example, tribes that did not use metal tools or firearms were often seen as being less civilized than the tribes that did. Now, let that sink in, people. Let that sink in for a minute while I go over here and pull up this other, the next page. It said their way of life. So, in determining if they civilized, they took into consideration their way of life. Settlers often viewed tribes that lived in settled communities and farmed the land as being more civilized than tribes that lived a nomadic lifestyle. And this is where we got to stop at, because what a lot of people don't know is when they saying we was nomadic tribes, we weren't nomadic tribes. We were in transition across the land from west to east, going into the fight the Gullah Wars, right? We got the call. We all came. We came from the Samoan Islands, the Tongan Islands, the Hawaiian Islands, the Cuban Island, the Puerto Rican Island. Why do you think they all here? Dominican Republic, Haiti, Hispaniola. They come from everywhere. We come from everywhere. We weren't nomads. We got castles all over the land. They turned the castles into prisons, state buildings, and mental institutions. And they told us that they just built these ancient structures on our land that's been here for some of them for 1,800, 2,000 years. Right? Some of them was built in the 800s and the 700s. But all of this was long before Columbus came. So it's their religious beliefs. Now, for the outsider to tell us about religious beliefs, he have to first give us a religion, right? Because spiritual people can't be trapped into a religious doctrine without protesting, unless there's some nefarious forces at play, like a blood right. If it's a blood right involved, we're going to do whatever we can to redeem the blood of the righteous. That's the nature of us as a people. We know they was innocent. We got to redeem the blood, but how do we do that? You have to conquer the enemy. And the only way to conquer them is to come together collectively as tribes, put our differences aside, and agree to redeem the land. So while the men out here fighting in the streets, the women is having a bridge party upstairs, bringing the community back together, wielding and dealing. Right? It said the settlers often viewed tribes with different religious beliefs as being uncivilized. For example, tribes that practiced polytheism were often seen as being less civilized than tribes that practiced Christianity. Ain't that something? Now, at the time they classifying these people by religious beliefs, Christianity's not here, nor is Judaism, nor is Islam, as we know it. The Islam that we know of, most people don't know, is the Islam of the Mamawatas, the Sibyls. The Islam of the goddess elect, with the ritual rites of the women kept alive by the practice of the Sufi priesthood. The Sufi priesthood performs the rituals to keep them in usage until the women is prepared to receive the rights back. And when the women do the rituals, they begin to activate the healing of the earth. That's simple. Every Sufi master has a daughter that he teaches secret ritual dances to. These are mitochondrial stimulating dances. Like whirling dervishes is one dance that's part of the mitochondrial elevating energy. It say the treatment of women, settlers, okay, yeah, the treatment of women, settlers. Now remember, this ain't how we viewed us. This is how the settlers viewed us when they didn't know what none of our shit meant. How could they know if they didn't ever practice it? We knew everything we did was in harmony with the earth, protected the children and the women, and made the men stand up like soldiers. Everything we did. That's the natural order of things, right? That's a knock to a knockback off a zigzag zig, straight up off a blue house father line to keep a man on the straight bump so that on the 360 degrees, no matter which way he turned, he can elevate his nation and his clan by being a good man. All Dominicans are not bad, but the bad ones is the worst of the worst. The good Dominicans is going to be responsible for cleaning up their own house. All of the people in Dominica and in Haiti know who the dirty players is on their land. And if you don't believe me, all you got to do is keep watching while they're getting rid of them in real time, while they're making alliances across groups and clubs in order to overcome the threat. All right. So they also use the willingness to trade with settlers as a litmus test for the level of civilized you was. Considering in retrospect, the most civilized tribe is probably the one who refused most diligently to do business with the invader. From our perspective, anyway. But from their perspective, settlers often viewed tribes that were willing to trade with them as being more civilized than tribes that were not. These factors was often subjective and based on the settlers' own cultural biases. As a result, many tribes that were considered uncivilized by settlers were actually quite sophisticated and complex societies. Ain't that something? But they calling us uncivilized, but we had quite sophisticated and complex societies. How is this possible if we savage? So the big test to determine if we savages, do we believe in a Jesus or not? These factors were often subjective and based on the settlers' own cultural biases. Here are some specific examples of how settlers determined if a tribe was civilized or uncivilized. Now watch this, straight out the gate. The Spanish conquistador who arrived in the Americas in the 16th century viewed the native people as being uncivilized because they did not have the same technology or religious beliefs as the Spaniards. They did not have the same technology or religious beliefs as the Spanish. Conquistadors, the Tudor conquerors of the 16th century. That's the 1700s, people. The American settlers who arrived in the 18th and 19th century, 17 and 1800s, viewed the Native American people as being uncivilized because they did not live in settled communities or farm the land. So because of how we performed as tribes, all tribes was not required to farm land. All tribes were not required to go fishing. We divided the workload up among the clans according to the specialty training of the clan. What you see is horse whisperers today was the responsibility of one of the tribes was the Apache, horse riding tribe. They bikers now, right? They give everything in the clues to tell you who they was. They got their charter from Big Mama. MC13, mother charter from the Queen Mother herself. That's why they can traverse the land And the police is not supposed to bother them, but they outlaw Klan because the police don't recognize Big Mama, right? The American settlers who arrived in the 18th and 19th centuries viewed Native peoples as being uncivilized because they did not live in settled communities and farmland. Insane, right? So they holding us to their own standard of who we should be, right? They telling us that we supposed to be who they tell us they want us to be, whether we want to be or not. The difference is we not falling for the banana in the tailpipe no more. 19th century forced many Native American tribes on the reservations where they were expected to adopt European American ways of life. Tribes that resisted the assimilation were offered labeled as being uncivilized. So now we're seeing the method of them determining how civilized we are. The concept of civilized and uncivilized tribes is a harmful one that has been used. Now, this AI telling me this to justify the exploitation and oppression of Native American peoples. It is important to remember that all cultures are different and should be respected. Now, this AI talking. According to the 1910 United States Census, okay, now we're going into the reclassification aspect of the belligerent tribes. There were 248,253 Native American and Alaskans in the United States. However, this number did not include all Native Americans, as many tribes were not recognized by the federal government. Let that percolate for a minute and sink in. Many tribes were not recognized by the federal government. Okay, so now they was already here. Government don't recognize them. They came. They declared them belligerent tribes, uncivilized, ward of the states. That's retarded. They are imbeciles, and they are 3/5 compromised, right? Dred Scott ruling. So these 3/5 compromised slaves, taxation without representation, have never been represented in the circle of the taxes because they were the property that was being taxed. In the early 20th century, the United States government began to reclassify many tribes as Negro or colored. Now remember, this AI answering my question. This was done for a number of reasons, including to assimilate Native Americans into white American society. Why would they need to reclassify you for that? Right? Why would they need to reclassify you that? Next reason is to justify the denial of Native American rights. Remember, according to the Dred Scott case, that no black man, meaning no enemy on this game, chessboard, have any rights that a white man, the attacker on his chessboard, is bound to respect. The conqueror is never going to acknowledge the conquered until the conquered decide to conquer his conqueror. And this is how you unravel the mystery and dig the truth out of the lies told in history. To justify the exploitation of Native American land and resources, the reclassification of Native Americans as Negro or colored was a harmful and discriminatory practice. It denied Native Americans their unique identity and culture, and it made them vulnerable to discrimination and exploitation.